Living in a third world country growing up, especially as a video game fan, came with its set of challenges. For one, and the biggest of the bunch, is the language barrier. The large majority of games are English first, and rightfully so, given the target audience, and when it comes to localizing, results can vary, depending on the game's budget. The most common languages you see besides English back then were French, Dutch, Spanish, and Italian, which often appeared in the PAL version of games. Nowadays, we see an increase in other languages, such as Portuguese, Polish, Russian, German, Japanese, and a couple of others. Second is the economic circumstances. This can honestly be applied to everyone, because as rationality goes, buying $60 or equivalent games monthly on top of the personal expenses is not a smart idea. Not only that, but as a kid, as many others, I didn't have the luxury of owning a ton of games, by mostly setting to a max of 2 per year, or none. Having said that, I never got the chance to play the most popular games, until I hit 16-17 years old. I missed on a ton of series such as Mass Effect, Final Fantasy, Halo, Gears, God of War, Ratchet & Clank, Sly Cooper, and the list goes on and on. And now that I'm able to make my own purchases, I thought it was finally time to start playing titles I've been meaning to from the past decade and prior years. The first biscuit to get munched on is, of course, Kingdom Hearts Final Mix, the seemingly impossible to think blend of Disney and Final Fantasy characters in an original universe created by Squaresoft in partnership with Disney. In the first of many, we see our protagonist Sora setting on an adventure in search of his friends as the new bearer of the Keyblade, while also uncovering the secret plans of a dark organization seeking world domination. Kingdom Hearts is the first game in the series, and at the time, it had a lot going for it. This title marks the directorial debut of Tetsuya Nomura, the guy who loves to add extra trinkets and small details to his character designs for absolute no reason at all other than to look stylish. They do look dope though, I got to admit. The end, what we end up getting, is one of the most creative titles that Square has produced at the time. Imagine someone comes up to you during lunch break and asks you to imagine a game where Disney had a crossover with any popular video game franchises. When you think about it, it's pretty hard to imagine that Final Fantasy, of all games, could find its way to the conversation. And yet somehow, seeing the final result all these years later makes it hard to believe how its overall structure just works. Before I start, I would like to preface that this video will include spoilers to the first game, so if you're not up to date, what's wrong with you? Jokes aside, if you mind spoilers or haven't played the game yet, I suggest leaving and playing the game first. It's a worthwhile experience. If you're up to date with the latest entry, I am not, then sit down, grab some popcorns and sit back, and hopefully you get something out of this video that you didn't know before. The Kingdom Hearts series is mainly structured around 3 major game design pillars: narrative, combat, and exploration. These are not only the stepping stones of every RPG ever, but they also showcase the strength of playing with already established structures. On the narrative front, we're presented an original story set in an original universe simply named World. In this universe, a long time ago, the world's mass was unified as one, bathed in the warm light of Kingdom Hearts, the source of all power and wisdom, as well as the bearer of the hearts of all worlds. As time moved on, however, it was clear that people desired the power within Kingdom Hearts, and to achieve so, they all forged Keyblades, these weird giant sword-looking keys, in the image of the X-Blade, Kingdom Hearts' protector. But it came at the cost of the peace within the world, as they clashed together in a far-reaching conflict, marking the event known as the Keyblade War, thus sinking the world into darkness. Not all hope is lost though, as sometime after, the world was restored by the light within the heart of children, now in a world where a unified mass is no more. This is also where we are introduced to our protagonist Sora, a 14-year-old boy who seeks to leave the island he currently resides in with his friends, and seek a whole wide world waiting for him. His plans are shortly interrupted, however, by the Heartless who invade the island during one night, and Sora, now in possession of the Keyblade, defeats one by one until the island gets destroyed, and he gets sucked into a void. In the meanwhile, trouble is brewing at Disney Castle. King Mickey is missing from the castle, but he left a vague note with instructions for Donald and Goofy to find the key. So they both pack their bags, heat up the gummy ship, and travel to Traverse Town, which acts as the main hub world of the many worlds existing within, but more on that later. Upon arriving, Pluto finds an unconscious Sora lying in a corner. When he wakes up, he wanders around town and encounters the Heartless once more. This time, however, he encounters Leon, and he gives Sora a basic rundown of what's happening, and after a rather hasty meetup, from here on out, it's up to Sora and his crew to close the keyhole spread through the many Disney-themed and original planets, and stop Maleficent and the group of villains from reaching Kingdom Hearts. At its core, Square really plays at its strengths here, which is delivering strong narratives with rich lore. So it was surprising to hear that at first, Nomura wanted to focus on gameplay and keep the story simple. But after Hironobu Sakaguchi noticed this, he alerted Nomura that the game was going to fail if he didn't aim it to a level similar to Final Fantasy quality. Hearing this pushed Nomura to develop the story further. And this is the point where the game stopped holding our hands as we're slowly introduced to various planets based on Disney franchises, from the Colosseum of Hercules to Agrabah and Aladdin, and my personal favorite, Halloween Town, based on Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas, and best visual aesthetic too. These worlds were chosen carefully, however, as Nomura and the team didn't want to manage multiple levels as it would be problematic, as well as making sure that the selected Disney characters fitted the storyline and the overall universe. In addition to those, they upheld the criteria of popularity and the characters they were allowed to use. These levels can be accessed through the Gummy Ship, a toy-like spaceship that can be highly customized through differently shaped gummy blocks, artillery, and blueprints for different types of shape for the ship. I mentioned artillery, and this is for the shoot 'em up minigame sections of the game. Alongside obstacles, we also face enemy ships, and during tight situations, shooting dotted blue rocks provides us with health items. I've also made the inconsiderate mistake of sticking with the base ship for the entirety of the game, as the game honestly gave a pretty bare-bones explanation on how the shipbuilding mechanics functioned, as well as having a pretty cumbersome editing mode. At the end of the day, those sections act as entertaining transitions. Although controls feel janky by today's standards, it does the job. The real meat is located on the planets, one of the game's most fascinating aspects. Given the limited PS2 hardware, the team had to make concessions to accommodate their goals. As such, the game features in total 13 worlds, and each world is chopped up into sections, allowing each room to serve a specific purpose, almost like a dungeon in a sense. Traverse Town, in this instance, is structured as both the main hub area, where the player can interact with shops and NPCs for items, and the story to progress, as well as a dungeon of sorts, where players can potentially farm for higher XP or training with the lower level enemies. As you can see in this super basic outline of the map is composed of 3 districts in conjunction with the alleyway. The districts serve to move the story forward. For example, in the first district, you fight Leon as he seeks to snag the blade out of your hand. In the second, you get explained the gist of the situation. And in the third, you meet Donald and Goofy as they have finally found the Keyblade bearer. This speaks to a majority of Kingdom Hearts worlds, as many sections are divided for story, combat, exploration, or all mixed in some shape or form. In conjunction, some levels also feature Metroidvania elements as you progress further into the other worlds and unlock different abilities, allowing you to enter different areas. In the case of Traverse Town, you unlock Mystical House and Secret Waterway. Secret Waterway serves the same purpose as the districts. It serves to progress the story. And Mystical House not only moves the story, but also benefits you gameplay-wise, as you unlock a new world, the 100-acre wood, and gain access to training. I'm yet to play the rest of the Kingdom Hearts games as of the recording of this video, as I didn't want my opinion of those games to affect the subjectivity of this analysis. Having said that, Kingdom Hearts progression and level design is heckin' bizarre. Allow me to elaborate. As game's progression evolves, signposting does too. Signposting is a level design aspect that highlights obvious and abstract indicators that show how you're moving through a game's level. Sometimes they can be informative, other times deceptive. It all depends on the developer's intention. Kingdom Hearts struggles immensely with this. Most levels are structured in a manner that makes first-time players like myself confused on the objective, without the help of a guide, thus affecting pacing in a weird way. Take for example Halloween Town. As beautiful as the visuals and aesthetic are, the level is a bit confusing mumbo-jumbo, with a confusing layout and tons of backtracking that can make you feel lost. Still love it though. It's the type of game young me would feel dumb for playing. What young me wouldn't feel dumb when playing it is the semi-quasi Metroidvania elements, as I mentioned before, coming in the form of Trinity. Trinity is a special ability that presents itself as 3 different colored hearts linked in a circle in the ground that provides you with different perks, this being money, items, EXP, and even new pathways. Each color is not specific to a perk though, so expect a red Trinity to give you access to an item, while also giving you access to a passageway of an area you've previously been to, like Traverse Town as I mentioned. For an RPG, the system works in tandem with the hidden locations pretty well. At first, I was understandably confused, but as I progressed, I was still confused, so I had to search online, so there's that. The Trinity system is not only relegated to only this, as it can also be used as an attack move known as Trinity Limit, which consumes the entire party's MP but deals a significant amount of damage. And while we're on the topic of exploration, can I gush about this game's visual art style for a minute? There's a weird beauty behind the overall aesthetic of Kingdom Hearts' presentation. It's fascinating knowing how the team had to circumvent the limited hardware power while structuring the game, as it was the first batch of fully 3D games, along the Bouncer and Final Fantasy X, which I'm yet to play, and I have that thing sitting on my PS4 installed for more than a year begging to be experienced someday, while also delivering a simplistic yet eye-pleasing visual style. Its visual complexity can be seen as simple by today's standards, sure, but the texture and lighting do most of the job to mask that, and I feel that's why the game has aged so well all these years. Not just that, but the character designs are very Nomura, you know? His very signature spiky hair with intricate clothing, disproportionate body anatomy, and lots of chains. It's some cool and equally stylish stuff. What's even cooler in a way, it's the combat. I think I can openly say this. Kingdom Hearts is a straight up button masher, the boring of the bunch. If you don't take your time to look into its systems and how it's specifically structured to work within that game. You have the commands Attack, which perform a basic 3 combo attack, Magic, that allows the usage of different elemental attacks to damage enemies such as fire, ice, and electricity, Items, as it's pretty self-explanatory, allowing you to use healing items and the such, and Summons, Disney-themed powerful characters that provide aid to the player, and that's pretty much it. It seems too basic when you don't mention the ability system the game presents, which I feel a bigger emphasis was placed on, and personally, it's one of the things I love about RPGs, when they go out of their way to introduce or rearrange a neatly weird or unique mechanic that also fits abstractly well with the game's style. As you travel around worlds, you'll earn abilities that greatly enhance your performance in combat. These range from a dodge roll, guard, which is a tricky one, high jump, which allows you to jump higher than normal height, and my personal favorite, Ars Arcanum, where Sora does this slick, multi-combo finisher that does numbers. It's this weird prioritization of core combat elements as side stuff that makes it compelling in a sense. I only found out you could check enemies' health 1/3 of my 40-hour playthrough, and instead of being mad, I found it cool. The simple fact that you can complete the entire game without these core elements that ease the challenge, subsequently customizing your own fun. When you stop to think about it, you could make an argument that this is kinda pointless, like, Why do I gotta equip an ability that lets me see the enemy's health and such? And I can see your point of view, but at the same time, why not? It calls back to when Nomura wanted to solely focus on gameplay and not story, and you can definitely see the efforts both aspects got. But is it perfect though? Kinda. Camera feels wonky at times. Targeting enemies can be a hit or miss, some enemies legit go kamikaze on you, and balancing can sometimes feel unfair. Maybe it's because it's an older game and I don't have many other points of reference from the time to compare to, but movement can feel stiff at times. Positioning is important, as you can get blasted from a direction you were not expecting, and precise inputs can feel archaic from time to time. I presume later entries improved on it, but I digress. Another aspect that took some time to fiddle with is the enemy variety. Until the later worlds, you have a pretty diverse set of enemies to combat with, spanning from the smaller Heartless that are easy to defeat to more challenging ones, like Heavy Heartless, Floating Heartless, Speedy Heartless, and the like. It's a pretty structured setup that allows you to get used to enemy attack patterns and what strategies to employ. But once you reach Hollow Bastion onwards, oh boy does it get real. I wouldn't describe the progression as a difficulty spike, as the game has certainly provided its fair chances of challenging battles, but it definitely tests your sanity and persistence. Speaking about sanity, we have to talk about this. So, one of my first mistakes was coming to Kingdom Hearts with the mindset of it being a kid's game. So it should be a breeze, right? Jesus, no. This has to be one of the most challenging experiences I had in a while, particularly the bosses. Yes, I'm looking at you, Possessed Riku. Couple that with the dragon form of Maleficent, Cerberus in the Colosseum, and Ansem itself. The game can seriously kick your butt, in more ways than you can imagine, and not gonna lie, I really enjoyed that. I'm usually not the person who likes to die multiple times to complete a boss, as I strive to get the boss done in less than 3 tries. With Kingdom Hearts, however, it felt refreshing because it, kicking me in the butt, really made me realize why boss fights are fun. The challenge of overcoming an obstacle, followed by the satisfaction of beating after multiple tries, and Possessed Riku is proof of that. That boss put me down more than 8 times to the point I was sweating just to defeat him. I of course managed to beat him, and when that finally came through, not only did I feel relieved, but also happy to overcome said challenge. Something I wasn't expecting is the depth of the story, lore, and themes. On the surface, we get the very cookie cutter, good versus evil, light versus dark, and some really corny writing that makes it charming, reminiscent of So Bad It's So Good, I have to admit.
Kairi's inside me?
However, this possibly has some of the most alluring and complex lore and strong character development in a Square game. Not to say Square games have not met this bar, given I've only started playing their JRPGs recently. What I find fascinating about Kingdom Hearts is how convoluted, complicated, and complex the lore can be. I've seen memes going around, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that Nomura really loves to confuse and overcomplicate stuff, and this stuff really reminds me of how wild Suda51 can get with his concepts. But back on topic. At the end of the day, it's a real head scratcher coming to this for the first time, while also being careful not to spoil yourself when researching what the hell is happening in this universe. I've yet to see the big events, so from now on, let me touch on these pillars of the game's narrative. As I've briefly summarized in the intro, this universe presents a pretty competent lore, with some not hard to follow concepts such as the Keyblades, the Kingdom Hearts, not to be confused with the game's title, the Heartless, and the origins of the current state of the world. These are really well structured ideas that establish the mythos and game's main plot, not to mention how it believably affects the main cast. And not just that, but also the themes it tackles, being of reconnection, friendship, and I feel the most important of all, perseverance. Never giving up in the face of adversity and doubt, and that really resonated with me. What got me hooked at the end of the day is how strong character development is in this game. For starters, Sora, confident, charismatic, and determined to rescue both Kairi and Riku, managed to go planet through planet, battling foes alongside Donald and Goofy, while also helping locals of said planet. He really built him as a strong character, willing to push above and beyond to protect those he cares about, until midway through, right when he landed upon Hollow Bastion, where he's stripped of his Keyblade by none other than Riku, and ditched by Goofy and Donald, as they had to follow the King's protocol. It rocked him hard, kicking his confidence down and almost ready to give up, until he saw the persistence of the Beast to rescue Belle, encouraging him to push forward. Side note, I also love how this ties to gameplay, with the concept of disempowerment, having the player build so much experience to a point where they become one with the character, until they hit an important story point that strips them of the agency they were used to and now have to progress with the confinements of said disempowerment. This is a topic for another video though, as I have other ideas on how to explain that. This moment of the story reaches the climax of Sora's arc, when he realizes that what makes him powerful is the strength of the bonds he built up throughout the game and how they help build his determined composure, thus allowing him to reacquire the Keyblade and move forward onto his quest. In Riku's point of view, we slowly witness his descent into darkness, driven by desperation, as he has to contend with the fact that the only help he currently possesses is of Maleficent, as he tricks and lies to him constantly in order to steal the Keyblade from Sora and achieve her ultimate goal. This of course bites back, as Riku in the same position at Hollow Bastion acquires greater strength from the darkness as is possessed by Ansem, the game's main antagonist and a member of the real Organization 13. I have no idea who they are, I just used the Kingdom Hearts wiki to inform myself on this, so I can deliver this as complete as possible. Back on point. As a result, he leads Maleficent to her demise. The struggles Riku endures from the constant lies from Maleficent, plus his driving force to find Kairi, allowed him to embrace darkness and rescue her at all costs. This yin and yang duality plays at her favors in the end, and thanks to Riku and King Mickey, Sora, Donald and Goofy managed to defeat Ansem, as well as sealing the gates of Kingdom Hearts shut with the Keyblades that house said knowledge and power. It's also worth noting how well the Disney characters integrate themselves into the story. For starters, each main character of the Disney worlds stay relegated within their world, meaning that you don't see Tarzan, Aladdin or Peter Pan out of their worlds. This allows the storytelling to feel natural, as characters don't just suddenly pop out of nowhere with no explanation into the mainframe. Think of it as arcs or chapters, with each character relegated to their own moment. Some characters do however have their presence outside their worlds, as they are vital to the main plot, such as Donald and Goofy, who are vital members of the narrative, the Disney princesses that serve as the main conductor of the story, the sidekicks of the main characters of said worlds such as Tinkerbell, Simba, and Genie that serve as the game's summons and many more, and the main antagonists, Maleficent, Captain Hook, Jafar, and the like, that roam around the worlds in search of the princesses to fulfill their plans. My only gripe with this structure is the implementation of the Final Fantasy characters. Make no mistake that they provide the needed context to help Sora on his journey, as well as having important roles as they are in fact the former inhabitants of Hollow Bastion, providing context to the story. But I feel they were underutilized and only featured in the game for the sake of fan service. I just wish they were more active in the story, instead of only providing context and being relegated to the arena battles in the Colosseum, but alas, it's really cool to witness their presence and redesigns, from Sid, Aerith, Leon, Yuffie, Cloud, and even goddamn Sephiroth, who I'll never battle against because I don't have the willpower or patience to charge through that bastard. Nah, sir. All in all, it's safe to say that Nomura really didn't miss when Sakaguchi told him that what awaited him should the game not meet FF levels of storytelling. It absolutely delivered, and I loved it a ton. Speaking of love, we can't forget about the music. You know the saying of patience and dedication provides knowledge and rewards? Me neither, I just came up with it. But damned if I ignored the fact that this quote perfectly fits Yoko Shimomura, the game's composer. Shimomura has always had a taste for music, at a young age taking piano lessons and carrying that dedication till university, graduating with a major's degree. With uni finished, she wanted to become an instructor, but given her past with video games, as she was an avid player, she decided to send various samples across different game studios until she received a job offer at Capcom. Much to the dismay of her parents, however, they disapproved of her choice, as a career in games development was not well respected at the time. But persistent, she accepted the job offer, thus kickstarting her career as a composer. She got the gripes with composing within Capcom, as she produced more than 16 games for the company, including Final Fight and the much beloved Street Fighter II. After some time, however, she decided to move to Squaresoft, and she felt the need to compose more classical style music. It would be an understatement to state how good she is at what she does, because this move would prove her how versatile she is in interweaving this long-standing music genre in the interactive entertainment medium. Shimomura, of course, didn't start composing classical right away as she joined, as she composed on well-known Square properties such as Parasite Eve, Mission Front, and Legend of Mana. You might be wondering why I'm telling a brief history of Shimomura. I felt this was needed to put into perspective the multiple projects and sounds she worked with that shaped her style, until she reached what I would call the highest point of her career, that being this game's original soundtrack. This game's soundtrack is, without a doubt, one of the best she has ever orchestrated and produced to date. The score features a plethora of popular music from the time, as well as those similar of her previous work, such as the aforementioned classical music, J-pop, synthetic techno sounds, coupled with a mix of jazz, making it the most diverse set of sounds she worked with at the time. We can't also forget the house and trance style fan favorite track performed by the much beloved Hikaru Utada, which I wish I could play, but YouTube would bust me up in the alleyway, so I have to play safe with my cards. From the soothing Traverse Town theme to the exhilarating Shrouding Dark Cloud, the chilling and intimidating loops of Hollow Bastion, to the beautiful piano solo in Dearly Beloved, one of my favorite. The score not only follows the story's themes of light and darkness, but also provides a flair of variety and distinction present in the many games within Square's catalog. When you play this game, you will feel instantly grabbed by the music the same way I am now, not only on the starting screen, but throughout your entire journey. This soundtrack cemented Shimomura's popularity, not only as one of the best composers at Square, but in the industry as well. This was, however, her last score while working at Square, as she had to depart for maternity leave and work as a freelancer onwards. She thankfully remained besides the Kingdom Hearts franchise, composing for many subsequent games, including the latest main entry in the series, Kingdom Hearts 3. It's no surprise that Square have for a long time been lauded by how richly detailed their games are, and how consistently they have been at doing so. I've recently finished the original Final Fantasy VII, as I wanted to know the story firsthand before playing the remake, since it split into parts and I feared being spoiled, and it amazed me how technically ambitious it was at the time, and how it still holds up 24 years later. From the pre-rendered backgrounds to the gameplay and FMV transition, and the unique complexity of the materia system, it absolutely proves Square at the time worked smarter when approaching games. Not just that, but the fact that until FF13, each game had their own unique lore, gameplay system, and a specific gimmick that made it stand out above the rest. The PS1, PS2 era was also an era where Square got super experimental with the types of games they were developing, such as the unique concept of a JRPG racing game known as Racing Lagoon. It's Japanese only, unfortunately, but the OST slaps hard. Bushido Blade, with the interesting premise of losing as soon as you get it once, and many other gems I surely can't remember at the moment. Hell, even Kingdom Hearts surprised me 25 hours into the game when I found out the game seamlessly transitioned from facial textured animations to fully 3D models frequently. At that point, it finally clicked that not only was Square creative in terms of circumventing technical limitations, but they were also insanely good at masking them, whether it be through transitions, pre-renders, and the many more I presume they employ frequently. This game is slowly turning me into a massive fan of Square's work and dedication, not that I wasn't previously, mind you. I've recently purchased an Xbox Series S. The last Xbox console I owned was a 360. I never picked an Xbox One because I never saw any reason or interest to pick it up. My friends are mainly on PlayStation, and during the PS4 era, their offering of exclusive content was certainly compelling. I was interested in a few Xbox One games, but not enough to the point of spending money to buy it for a particular game. With the start of this generation, I picked the Series S for two reasons. Backwards compatibility, as there are many games from the PS360 era I never got the chance to play around, and Game Pass. Now, don't get it twisted, I'm not here to advertise you Game Pass. It was never the sole reason for the purchase, as I've always seen it as an enticing plus of getting this machine. As soon as I gave the trial a shot, I was greeted with a ton of games that I never heard of before, games I missed out, and games that I plan on buying at some point. One of those games was the entire Kingdom Hearts collection, so I said, why the hell not, and decided to give this series a shot. I was certainly not expecting to love this game as much as I thought I would, from the heartfelt story, to the interesting gameplay decisions, and the magnificent score. It definitely left a mark, that I'm certain. Now that I finished the game, I'll be diving into Kingdom Hearts proper, and see the saga as presented so far, and I probably won't make any videos on it until I've beaten the whole series, so the too long didn't hear for this video is, I really love this game, and if it's your first time getting into this series, as long as you adjust into its quirks, you'll have a blast, trust me. And with that, I'll be seeing my way out. If you watched all the video through the end, then thank you, I really appreciate that. This one has been a long one in the making. Because of school I had to pause it, but then I decided to dedicate a single week to see if I could get this finished by the end of the month, and surprise surprise, I got it in the end of a week, so this was really fulfilling. And also about Kingdom Hearts, I'm really enjoying. I'm gonna start, I think it's 365, the next one I should be starting because of the weirdly convoluted story. I don't know, but I'll be diving into the next Kingdom Hearts in a few hours. So once again, if you like the video, leave a like, leave a comment, maybe toggle the notifications on and subscribe. If you want to know more of what I'm doing, follow me on Twitter. And if you want to see some of my illustrations, follow me on Instagram. And besides that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Goodbye.